Okay, is it on?
Hello. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Before we get started with our integrative medicine session, we'd really like to fill in these front tables here so that Dr. Ellis doesn't have to feel like he's talking to the back of the room. There's a lot of good information. Come on up front. Get comfortable. There we go. So while folks are kind of moving up, my name is Rhonda Worth. I'm a certified breast cancer nurse and a breast care nurse navigator with Kaiser Permanente. I am super excited to introduce Dr. Robert Ellis to you here today. He's got some really fabulous information to give us on the topic of integrative medicine. Dr. Ellis is a medical oncologist and director of the Integrative Oncology Program for Northwest Permanente, which is the physician group for Kaiser Permanente. He is an assistant professor of medicine at the College of Osteopathic of the Pacific, where he leads the lifestyle medicine curriculum and longitudinal program. Dr. Ellis acquired his interest in preventative medicine and resilience training in the Army Medical Corps, where he served on active duty for 14 years. He holds a PhD in immunology from the Rosalind Franklin University of Health and Medicine, and a doctor of osteopathy from the Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. A professionally trained plant-based chef and certified culinary medicine specialist, Dr. Ellis works with both the Ruby Cooking School and the Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine to develop the knowledge, protocols, and skills to allow patients to prevent and treat chronic illnesses through lifestyle interventions. His main interest is in the role of integrative modalities of care in the prevention and treatment of cancer. So if you please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Robert Ellis.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. Yeah, if everyone will move forward, this is not Catholic Mass. No one's getting out here early. So I'm very happy to be here and to give you a glimpse of how I look at integrative approaches. This is a clinical and academic interest of mine since getting a PhD and being concentrated in what we call psychoneuroimmunology, which is the ability of the mind to control the immune system. I have a very eclectic background. I have 4 very powerful women in my life, a grandmother who is a physician, a grandmother who is a Native American healer, a mother who actually persevered and helped her son overcome a learning disability, and a powerfully trained psychiatric nurse of a wife that actually helps keep me on track. So to all you women, nothing good ever comes in the world without a woman. Can you tell how I voted? Okay, now is this supposed to work? Okay, so like all things that physicians do, I call it the Dr. Oz syndrome. This is not a medical class, it's not a medical clinic. I am a physician, I don't play one on TV, but this is not medical advice. My opinions are solely my own, and I do not speak for Northwest Perm, Kaiser, or anyone else for that matter, so please don't tell my mom what I said here, she knows. Now, so, like all of us though, the map and the territory are real important. And so as a physician, I want to give you what that map looks like. Now, what exactly is integrative oncology? Well, really, integrative oncology just means we steal from everybody, okay? It means to integrate, to incorporate. I'm a cut and paster. If turmeric will downregulate several oncogenes, I'm using it. If meditation will lower blood pressure, I'm using it. If chemotherapy will extend you and is of clinical benefit, I'm going to use it. What does holistic medicine mean? It not only means that we recognize that there is a body and a mind and a soul, but as a holistically oriented provider, I believe, like BMW, that it is about the living experience, the driving experience, and that as a car mechanic, it may be all about the car, but it is actually about life. And so I bring to my practice the fact that the body is in service to the soul. Now, alternative medicine, I reject. There's only two kinds of medicine. It works or it don't. There is no alternative. Now, what do these two dudes know about breast cancer? Well, it turns out in my prior life in the Army, we learned a lot about achieving goals, some of them kind of ominous and not very nice, but we got things done. We called it the Department of Getting Stuff Done. Now, Pareto and Voltaire. Pareto is the king of laziness because he found out in almost every human endeavor that 80% of the benefit is found in 20% of the effort. Pareto is actually the genetic lineage of my son. The minimum effective dose, okay? Now, but this is important to know, because if I tell you there's 4, 5, or 8 things to do, you can't do them all 100%. But if I tell you the biggest bang for the buck is 20%, well, hell, you do a lot of 20%, right? Balance, homeostasis, that's what osteopathics learn. Now, Voltaire and the Stoic philosophers that gave rise to him, and my personal favorite, George Patton, the senior, the general, he used to say, the perfect's the enemy of the good. There is no perfect. There's only the good. There's better, there's less good, not gooder, and that is the sweet spot. So those are the two things that I have always been raised with and that I bring to this field for you. Two things. You know what? There's a lot of bang for buck on just doing something. And there is no perfect. There's no perfect diet. There's no perfect thing. And like two of the other greater women in my life, Glenda, of course, would tell me that if you are finding yourself in a foreign land due to a cyclone of chaos and disaster, which for most of you is cancer, and you find yourself wanting to get home, that you have to start at the beginning. And this mission was really, really cemented for me. And I was sitting in PALS, and for vocational activity, people golf, people do a lot of things. I sit in POW, drink tea, and I read oncology books. That's what I do. There's hundreds of them. I read them, and I leave. I mean, I do buy some things. Don't shut down POW. So what I did, though, one day, many years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when I first came to Portland, there was a young, sweet woman. She was very distraught. She was on the cell phone talking to her mom, and obviously she had gotten her dad very grim prognosis and disease, and she was trying to do something to help him. And she was trying to find books on what to eat and how to help. But there was literally hundreds of books. So I sat there, I went over, I'm very introverted in private life, and I said, you know, I kind of know something of this. It's kind of a hobby of mine. And if you would like me, I could help you. So I grabbed a few books, Cancer Fighting Kitchen, Life Over Cancer and things. I said, start there. And I figured out that that was it. There was no map, there was no compass. Well, in the Army, as a ROTC cadet, I had heard that the most dangerous thing in the Army is a second lieutenant with a map and a compass. But in reality, no one's getting through this battle without the map. You've got to know. But Glenda had a map. She knew the map. It was the yellow brick road. That would be my job. That would be my job, to point people in the right way. So through all this research and all these big ideas, my attention deficit brain was never overwhelmed, but I could see a pattern emerge. I could find out that there were really three things, three skills, which everything flew. It doesn't matter if you're taking turmeric or high-dose vitamin C if you're smoking and driving through McDonald's. It don't matter. You're asking too much of turmeric. Second of all, it doesn't matter now. Research has shown that if you go to the gym for an hour and buff up and all that and go back to your office and sit for 12 hours, it don't work. You're like, oh, great. Which is another thing I'll tell you about exercise. And then, how about paying attention? I can't tell you about love and kindness and getting over your crazy relationships in that, which we know impact our survival and our cause. But not if you don't pay attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs. If you believe you cannot beat this, you are the Cleveland Browns. Right? And I'm sorry, I represent a profession that is very good at using the nocebo and not very good at using the placebo. But these were my three skills. Pay attention, eat better, and just move more. And I'm like, wow, I went through all that education for that. Okay, so let's start at the top, the very beginning. Because for me, this is how I got over some very difficult learning issues in my life. To pay attention to my thoughts, to get control of my mind being the most powerful force in the universe. And so, stress reduction. We now know, beyond a shadow of the doubt, through Harvard medical research, that meditation, mindfulness, invokes a physiological change which changes gene expression, lowers physiological outcomes such as blood pressure, raises natural killer cells, decreases clinically important depression, not to mention the transcendental spiritual benefits. Stress reduction in the current evidence, as supported by the Society of Integrative Oncology, has found evidence, consensus view that it should be used not only for physical but psychological reasons in breast cancer patients and breast cancer survivors. I just wish there was a different way of saying it. Because meditation, evoking the relaxation response, they're awkward. They're awkward terms, they have a lot of baggage. They just do. Now, we also approach this whole thing of mind training, of controlling our thoughts in some very eclectic, crazy ways. My wife is a psych nurse. She would tell you that knowing how it works and why it works is completely unnecessary. It works! Just get to it! And that's Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. He said, look, I know as a spiritual practitioner, there is a practice that can help people transcend pain and suffering. And as a physician, I profess to reduce the suffering of all my patients, not to heal their bones, not to shrink their tumors, not to lower their hypercholesterolemia. I profess, that's the Hippocratic I profess to relieve the suffering of my charges. And this is how that is. There are tools that can help you transcend that suffering. I'm a doctor, though, and it don't happen unless Bob knows how in the hell it works. And that's Dr. Herbert Benson. At the time that the Beatles, you all are old enough to know the Beatles, the gurus, the transcendental meditators, Dr. Benson was a cardiologist, and he said, oh, hell no. No one can do that shenanigans, because the brain is wired to protect us from messing with it. But as a scientist, he said, bring it on. I'm going to figure it out. And to his surprise, he absolutely found that there were individuals who could control their autonomic nervous system, could do surgery without anesthesia, could lower their blood pressure, could change their brain chemistries and all that. And he said, wow, I got to figure it out, and the two meet in the middle. They're the same technique. We now know how they work. We now know the best practices. We just got to tell patients this is a wonderful thing. Now, what Harvard has done is they said, wow, we got a smorgasbord of contemplative meditative practices that date 2,500 years and beyond. What the heck? What's the perfect practice? And whenever someone says that, you know he's a doctor. What's the perfect? Oh, physician. That's how they think. But he figured out, many ways up the mountain, grasshopper. So I do not tell Catholics that they have to practice Zazen. You ain't getting nowhere, baby. The rosary is a completely great ability to evoke the relaxation experience, and we know that when Benedictine nuns and monks practice the Lectio Divina, the contemplative reading of the liturgy of the word, their brain emulates the same thing that meditators do. Find your practice and do it. So how is that? Well, this is the root. Basically, you're focusing on a word, a symbol, a sign, something. And that's giving your left brain something to do. My mom would tell me to go rock. As you notice, I'm very hyperactive. I've been rocking since I was a baby. And she'd let me rock when I did my homework because it gave my body something to do so that I could be thinking about the timetables. Because Bobby was too busy moving to understand that 5 + 5 = 10. So, and then you sit in a comfortable, you close your eyes, and you breathe. I use breathing because it's the thing that's always with us. The Fitbit, nope, doesn't always happen. Not always in church. Don't always have that big book called the Lectio Divina. Don't always wear these. But if I'm not breathing, we got another problem because dead people don't need to meditate. So, breathing is also a physiological link because it turns out that your nose makes nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is laughing gas. So if all of you were to take a nice deep breath through your diaphragm, through your nose, you'd be like, oh, yeah. Well, that's a hit. That's a hit of laughing gas. That's why I like it. I'm high all the time. People think, well, how come Bob isn't burned out or depressed? Whew, Bob's high all the time, and there's no drug screening that Kaiser can do to pick it up. Now, as a doctor, though, I want to know what the minimum effective dose is because I don't got 8 hours to stare at my belly button all day. So it turns out, if you just want to lower your blood pressure, calm your heart rate, anxious, we call it talking people down. I know there are representatives of law enforcement here in the crowd, and they used to call that, they're talking a patient down. They synchronize the breathing, they get the breathing to slow, bam. But let's say you were like, wow, how about changing oncogenic gene function? Harvard Mind-Body Institute published in the peer review literature that if we took 120 cancer patients who had no contemplative meditative training, and we taught them that relaxation response, and they practiced for 6 weeks. And before the practice, they measured blood, and they measured oncogenic gene activity, much like the precision medicine people are talking about back then. And then in 6 weeks, they tested the blood again, and they found out that the gene expression of known oncogenes was completely changed. There is no drug, chemotherapy, anti-estrogen, or anything that we know of in modern science that turns gene function off. Block its receptors? Yes. Interfere with the cell growth cycle? Yes. Turn the gene which is causing the shenanigans? There's only one drug. That's Gleevec for a very specific genetic abnormality called the Philadelphia chromosome. And when that drug goes away, the chromosome damage is still there and the CML comes back. This is a practice now in the literature which has done something that no medical science has been able to do, which is to neural hack into the DNA. And you have that mind with you. It was installed at your birth. But you got to practice. Okay. How about eating better? Well, you could go on forever eating better. I think Michael Pollan said it the best. Just eat food, mostly plants, not too much. I'm like, what the heck? No one's buying that book. Wrong. The data about nutrition would fill this room, not only biochemically, but environmentally, epidemiologically, and what I represent in medical schools at a Tulane Medical School, culinary medicine. What's culinary medicine? It's teaching us how to cook and use healthy foods in a therapeutically appropriate thing. It's something I teach medical students and residents so that there'll be a new generation of doctors who don't go, I don't know, do what you want. Okay, so what is that? Well, it's food. I don't eat chemicals or supplements or crap that comes in boxes. Okay, yeah, I know. I have often eaten all that. But that's not the goal. That's not 80% of my meals. And it's nutrient dense. Why is that important? One, nutrition has a yin and yang. We eat things to protect us from bad things. We eat things to help the body run well. When I go to Costco and I put bad gas in my BMW, and I take it back to the BMW mechanic, I just write a check. He said, well, you've been putting in that car. Costco gas? Is that what you put it in that car? No. We put crap in our cars, and is it any surprise that we have cancer? Cancer was only found in 1 in 300 people at the turn of the century. In my grandmother's time in 1946, there wasn't enough cancer to get anyone trained. Wow, Grandma, that's a boring life. So now as an oncologist, I'm happy to tell Grandma, had she still been alive, that cancer affects 1 in 2. And why? Diet, nutrition, what we eat, and what we fail to eat. This is beyond any recognition. I'm not getting no Nobel Prize for that. I cut and pasted that out of the National Cancer Institute's consensus statement. Whole food, organic, our water and what we eat has all kinds of chemicals, hormones, antibiotics, all kinds of pesticides. Protein, we often fight nutrition in the fringes. The vegan army, the ketogenic army, the zone army. And we miss the commonality. If I put all those dudes in a room and I locked it and I said, no one's getting out of here without agreeing on what we agree on, 80% would be plants, whole food, and then the protein and where the protein came from would be the minutia, right? Let's don't focus on the minutia. While our attentions are changed, we're still eating bad things. Not only do we eat the bad things, but we're avoiding the things we need. Where do you think turmeric came from? Ayurvedic medicine. Something that nature, that God gave us. Okay, so what are some? Well, the lean and body mass thing you just got to lay out there. We know that body mass, fat intake, is a poor prognostic indicator. We know that women and men who have excess weight or are frankly obese have inferior survivals. We think we know why. But on the other flip of cancer is the fact that cancer is an inflammatory, systematically driven disease, and people can be malnourished. They can lose weight and be too skinny. And some diets that I use therapeutically, like the ketogenic diet, need adult supervision because you can get yourself in trouble. Good example, if you have cholesterol problems, diabetes, or blood pressure, you're on those 3 medicines, and you go on a pure vegan diet, within 3 days, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and your glucoses will all start to fall. If you're still on medicine, you will bottom out and end up in the ER going, I don't know, I'm allergic to the vegan diet. No, the vegan diet changed your chemistry, and you're still on the medicines. So when someone says they're going to change their diet, I use diet as a drug. I stop or reduce those medicines, then I make the diet change. Your body is evolved through 25 to 30,000 years to take what is in our environment and evolve and be healthy and well. Osteopathy, we call that undefining and identifying the foundational causes that give rise to disease. And then water, and then again, alcohol is not water. And we did some crappy stuff to our water. But before we talk about Cajun water and ionized water and alkaline water and paying $5 for a quart for crap that falls out of the sky, it's just water. And that's the first thing. How much you need depends on your medical condition, how much you exercise. But if you don't pee more than 3 or 4 times a day and it looks very dark, yellow, and smelly, you're dehydrated. So you got to be mindful. So people say, well, I don't know, I pee once every 2 days. What are you, a camel? It's like, wow. And then how do you eat? Now, any Chicago Cubs fans? You'll know this. I mostly eat on a plate, except when I'm at home in Wrigley Field, then I eat with my hands and never, ever put ketchup on a hot dog. That's bad. Ronald Reagan told you that, right? So the key is we eat on plants. I don't play with my food. I don't weigh it. I don't measure it. I don't hack into the Weight Watcher app. I eat with a plate. This. I divide it in half. And the left half, I say left, not the right. Males use the right, not the left. But the left is all the bad stuff, the vegetables. Non-starchy vegetables. And if you eat 3 meals like that, that turns out to be about 3 to 5 servings. Yeah. And then the other half, right, that's carnivores like me, Midwestern. But I divide it to grains, starches, fruits. You know, the government assumed a lot, and they said 5 to 9 servings of fruit and vegetables. So my son would eat 3 cans of green beans and 5 servings of fruit. I was like, oh, dude, the and should never have been there. Fruit is powerful, full of fiber and antioxidants and that, but it's also laden with sugar, right? And then the protein is where we all go off the handrails. Okay, we eat way too much protein. And what we eat is not good. It turns out, for any of you who still want to eat red meat or beef, there is a workaround. When you eat grass-fed, organic beef, it can be cooked medium rare. The E. coli food poisoning is not a problem. The fats haven't turned into carcinogens. So I'm not at all sure it's what we eat. I think it's what we ate. Now, there are other reasons for being a vegan. Environmentally, economically, spiritually, and nutritionally. We do know that red meat probably is a problem. But we're not going to get into a big old meeting of the minds about whether we should be vegans or not. That is just distraction. So that's what I eat. Okay, so how about exercise? Move your body through time and space. So, because you're pushing your heart, your lungs, you're exerting yourself, this is where doctors start to go, okay. But cardiologists have shown that you can take people within 24 hours of having a myocardial infarction and start them exercising. So, if you're on chemotherapy, radiation, like all things in this talk, run it by your physician. Start low, go slow. Understand that even though you may be an aerobic champion or a marathoner, that you may have to just dumb it down a little bit. But at the bottom of the day, it's just moving. And there are available resources And so how about dose? Well, this is a famous dose cut and pasted from the American Cancer Society's website. It's 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity exercise. That's 80% of the benefit. So my son's terminology would be, how could I maintain my body mass, get some chicks? How much time do I have to spend in the gym? Well, okay, I hate to tell you, it's a half hour, 5 days a week. Really? Okay, I can do that. There you go. Strength training and flexibility. Now, it turns out that intensity has everything to do with it. So you can do 300 minutes of low intensity exercise, or you can do 75 minutes of high intensity exercise. So the weekend warriors, they get the job done. And exercise is not the same as movement or fitness. So let's get out of our mind, because gym and exercise has a really bad connotation. But dancing, well, not the way I dance. I'm mostly on the floor, and that is a no intensity exercise. But bicycling, canoeing, skiing, jogging, all these things count as exercises, as movement. Now, how do we know we're not going to end up in the emergency department? I use my mom. This is my mom. This is me and my mom. We're going through Nordstrom's. It's what I call Mom Ellis's perceived exertion scale. And it is confirmed by the American College of Sports Medicine, although they call it something else. 1, low intensity exercise is that you can sing and hum and talk in complete sentences, and you're moving your body. Now, that takes 300 minutes of activity a week. So that means me and my mom have to spend 300 minutes in a shopping mall. Shopping and talking and singing and having a good time. I'm like, oh, Mom, you're killing me. Moderate intensity is when Mom sees something. I got to get to Nordstrom's before it closes. So now she can't sing. There's none of that humming. Woo-doo-doo. There, but she can speak in complete sentences. Come on, Bob, we got to get up there. Come on, I got to get home. And I'm like, okay, Mom, that's moderate intensity. Now I've cut the shopping at Nordstrom's down to 150 minutes. And high intensity is Mom is not singing and she ain't talking and she's panting. Just much like she grabbed that sales rack. But now I know that I only have 75 minutes in Nordstrom's. But I'm worried about Mom because she might end up taking all those purchases in the ER. Okay? So it turns out you can wear a Fitbit, but we all know. So when I'm running, I know if I can sing or if I can talk, I'm probably right in the zone. Okay, so how do you put all this stuff together? Well, here it is. You don't now have to know the whole path because you don't know the whole path. No one does. The worst question I'm ever asked as an oncologist, you know what it is? It's how long do I have to live? I don't know that. If I was a clairvoyant, I'd be on the Oprah show. Okay? Just take it a step at a time. Take these things and let's make it a path. Your body is intuitively smart enough to know. Once I give you a map and you have the GPS to know where you are, your body will find its way home. So I found as a parent, contrary to my good medical training, that it's better to get than to give. Good things are better than bad. And the first thing my children learned was not, Dad, you are fantastically great. It was no. No. Chris, eat your vegetables. No. Chris, take a shower. No. Chris, stop peeing on the carpet. No. Okay? So we got to find a way around that because we all have that boundary. Autonomous. No. We would rather be unhealthy for a long time than chaotically healthy. 2, once you start to add, the body will start to go, whoa, I like that nitrous oxide, going to get some more of that. And then you have the trust, and the body will say, well, how about we do 40 minutes? Okay, then you just walk right in there. It's called reverse psychology. And then we're going to optimize it, and you have to earn it. So essentially, this is how that would fall together. Now, essentially, I am a couch coach. My job is to get my patients from the couch to conqueror. Couch to cushion, couch to 5K, couch to kitchen. I'm not a professional athlete, dietitian, or mindfulness spiritual teacher. I'm just a couch surfer myself. And so my job is to get you up and get it started in a sustainable, economically feasible, right way. Because I would rather you have meditate every day for 5 minutes than an hour and a half for a week, and then we're done. Sustainable, long. Nietzsche said this the best: a single direction, a single discipline, and a single direction. Okay. So how do we do that? We'll go back. Okay, so let's just say none of this is working. And you can cut and paste as you want. So how would you start? Well, how would you start? 80% of the benefit is in the first step. Probably the second. 1, simple. Start meditating. 5 minutes a day. Find something that works and just do it. Believe it or not, iPhones have a mindfulness app. It's called Headspace. How oxymoronic, right? But start it every day. And that's what I write on a prescription. At Kaiser, I don't give any prescriptions other than what I write about this. Tells you everything you know about Northwest Perm, right? The only thing Dr. Ellis is writing is this stuff. Eat 5 servings of non-starchy vegetables a day. I don't care if you eat hot dogs, you drink vodka, or whatever you do, but every day you're going to eat 5 servings of vegetables. And then you're going to move throughout the day, just like me. If I'm down 20 minutes or 30, my wife thinks I'm dead. So you're just going to set a timer, you're going to get out, shake and jive, move around. That's where you're going to start. And when you start there, your body will start to understand what it needs to do. And then you'll make the next. So maybe that's a week, maybe it's 6 weeks, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it is 6 years. Doesn't matter. You're all getting to the finish line. So now that you're doing the good stuff, now I got to get the bad stuff out. And this is where most oncologists and I differ. Stop smoking. Ooh, that's tough. How about we just breathe right and exercise? And when you're tired of hacking and coughing and spitting, maybe we'll stop the smoking. Okay? So that's next. Now let's expand to the minimum effective dose of daily meditation. 5 minutes to 20 minutes. Now I'm asking you to sacrifice some of your time. Right? Because it's going to take 20 minutes. Something's going to give. So you got to kind of have a taste of it. Ooh, I like that. Going to get more of that, right? 2, now let's start to talk about diet. Reducing carbohydrates, cleaning your protein, adding healthy fats and healthy liquids. That's going to take a little bit more work. A little bit more, I'm asking a little bit more of you. And then let's go to Nordstrom's and let's just do a little bit more exercise. Maybe a gym, maybe we work more, maybe we do all that. And then the third thing, after you've practiced it a while, you've owned it, you're going to find out what works for you. So meditation twice a day, 20 minutes. That's the minimum effective days to make the changes. Now, if you're already there, if you're an epiphany learner, if you take the teaching moment that a cancer diagnosis gives you, you may just jump right there. It's just as an Army officer, as a teacher, as a parent, and as a physician, I've been doing this a long time, trying to get people to change their behavior. And most of us are not epiphany learners. We're lean into learners. Okay? 2, now we're talking eating the mushrooms and the Ayurvedic and the healthy cooking, not using oils, using sauteing. That's healthy cooking. Learning to cook, reinventing the kitchen, you know, the thing with burners on it and some stuff, you know. And then add flexibility and balance exercise. Why? Because that's asking some more of you. So that's how you get it. When you get there, that's 80% of lifestyle integrative things. That reduces the chance of you getting cancer, and that has a 30% survival enhancement. Women who go on a low-fat, plant-based diet with moderate intensity exercise and a meditation stress practice have 30% decrease in their relapse. As an oncologist, that's when I read the article. Wow. 30%? Adjuvant chemotherapy only has a 33%. And the scientists found out that it's on top of those. So if you get chemo, anti-estrogen, and surgery, and you add that, boom, that's another chunk of change. And odd enough as it seems to say this, the science also tells us that that benefit is mostly found in estrogen-negative tumors. A tumor which is very aggressive and very hard to control. And then most of all, just 4 parting thoughts. We can spend a lot of time on this. Remission, rightness, and kindness. You ever worry or you ever wonder about why we physicians call something remission? It's a completely made up thing. It has nothing to do with the Latin, missio. I don't know how it came to be, but it's an interesting phrase. Because as a male, as a physician, and as an army officer, I always knew about missions, the missio, getting the objective done. So all of our objective usually is to go into remission and stay in remission. But what I am giving you to think about is I have asked you to remission your life. I have asked you to redirect your life, to give up watching March Madness at 2 in the morning to watch Tony Bennett coog a game, the Washington State coach. I'm asking you, don't do that, meditate, go to bed, okay? I'm asking you to change maybe your diet. I am probing in the intimate things that only you can do. I can't do them for you. 2, what is right is what works for you. There's just no other way. There is not the perfect diet. There is not the perfect meditative practice. It has to fit inside your life. You are unique, incarnated souls with a unique legacy, a unique body, and a unique thing around you. It is your path to find your own healing path and get your own self back to Kansas. I can't do that. I am a very nice man. I'm a terrible wizard. My job is to help and to coach you and to support you. But me, I'm trying to get that balloon out to Kansas too, okay? So what is right is what works. People call me, yeah, but you said be vegan. Are you working with a Mediterranean diet? You're losing weight, you're feeling great, your cholesterol's down? Yep, that's it. Thank you for sharing. That'll be some more money. So it is always better to be kind than right. Why? Because we don't know what right is. Right depends on how you define it, right? Yeah. There is no perfect right. But kindness, I believe, is the way the universe is constructed. All scriptural texts say this, even to say in the most modern and latest of the scriptural avatars that the divine ground of all being is love. And when love is around, that is the divine one, and that makes love the most powerful force in the universe. And it is always better to lead with love. Why? Love opens you up. Love increases the parasympathetic flow. Your immune system works better when you're in that open state. Fear is protective and hardened, and it's a sympathetic fight, flight, or fright, and you do not heal with fear. You're controlled by fear. You're manipulated but you only heal through love. Always better to be kind. And then the last one. There ain't no free lunch, Bob. Thanks, Dad. Actually, there was, okay? Every approach, if it's going to work, whether it is diet, mindfulness, or psychotherapy, needs a plan, an organization, and a follow-through. If you don't practice it, it don't happen. I wanted to play second base for the Chicago Cubs. Number 12, Glenn Beckert. I wasn't very good. I didn't practice hitting and batting. I just thought I could will myself into it. Well, here I am. Cubs won the World Series. I'm not a part of the roster. You gotta play to play. You gotta do the work. It's not hard. Simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. But you gotta do the work. And then this is a quote from one of my famous philosophers, Epictetus and the Stoic philosophers around it. I only ask you 3 things. 3 things do you have to do every day. 1, pay attention. Meditate stress. See things for what they are, not for what you want them to be, not the way you want them to turn out, but to see clearly with the mind's eye, to see what's there, to pay attention. Because the only moment that is here is the present moment. That's why it's called the present. Future, that's science fiction. The past is history. See things for what they are. Pay attention. 2, do what you can. Not the impossible, but the possible, the better. Eat better. Move more. Be kind to yourself, but do what you can. And 3, the will, the courage, the lion. The most important of all those 3 characters was the will. The courage to persevere through all the storms and still be hopeful and helpful and loving and kind, although life is beating you up. Remember this. Your cancer is the obstacle. It is the roadblock. But the cancer is the way. Dorothy would rather not have made that heroic healing journey through Oz, but she saw that she wasn't in Kansas anymore. She did what she could to wrestle with the witches and to seek out the guidance of wisdom and other guiders, and she persevered and she got home. The cyclone was the way of growing, and your cancer can be your way of healing and coming out the other end. And always remember what Glinda said. You always had those powers. You just never would have used them because you would never have believed it. So that is the end of my formal talks. I'll be here, and Rhonda's like, what the heck? He's like 20 minutes early.
Right. I can turn this thing back on again.
Okay.
Here we go. So if you have written questions down for Dr. Ellis, if you could hold those up, and we'll come around and collect those real quickly. What's that? Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Do we have questions out there for Dr. Ellis? Here we go. Just go ahead and hold your card up. All right, here you go. I don't know if you can read that?
Okay, so this is what proteins do you recommend, and then eggs. Okay, so we'll dial back and we'll talk about protein. So there's a lot of ways that we get protein. We're omnivores. That means we evolve to eat a lot of things through different ecosystems. But we now know that we have different proclivities, different genetic proclivities. A good example, my wife doesn't do very good or hardly good at all at a vegan diet. She doesn't. And I do. Why? Well, we did some testing of our livers and some genetic shenanigan research, and we found out that as a Polish person, she has the gift of being a slow metabolizer of carbohydrates and starches, which means that she conserves and builds fat in very hostile and food-poor environments, which if you're trying to reproduce and thrive in the hazard of the winter, my wife will survive when I'm done. I can't even skip breakfast, okay? So that's a genetic thing. So we don't have a lot of sophisticated tools, so you got to play it. So we know there is no recommended dietary allowance for sugar, just protein. And it turns out that a ballpark protein intake for a non-athlete, typical American is about 0.8 grams per kilogram. That is about 50 to 70 grams of protein a day. The average American eats 100 to 150 grams. Protein's converted into sugar. Protein feeds cancer. Too much protein is the right answer. Optimal intake. Second of all, what we did to the protein makes a difference. So are eggs good or bad? I don't know. You can eat a lot of good eggs and a lot of bad eggs. So are eggs good? I don't know. Where'd those chickens? Did the chickens have a name? Did they run through my yard clacking and laying them in the hooch? Did they eat grass and bugs? Or were they triple A's that have been handled in some kind of Auschwitz for chickens, and they're this small? As a chef, I will tell you there is a difference between a grass-laid, grass-fed egg and something from Fred Meyer. I eat eggs. I eat about 6 eggs a week. But my chickens, they got names. Now, that doesn't mean I won't go into Denny's and eat some egg that they've hacked over, but that's okay. 80% of my eggs are organic and that. Why? Because it's a very important protein source for me. Same way, I'm telling you, I am not always a vegan. When I go back home, there are no vegans in Chicago. And I was born near Wrigley Field, and there are no vegans in Wrigley Field. They even ask you on StubHub, when you're buying a Cub ticket, if you're a vegan. They don't care about Republicans and Democrats, but if you put vegan, you're not getting into the bleachers. So I am a carnivore. I was raised a carnivore. Potatoes, potatoes, potatoes. I didn't think, my mom would say, do you need more potatoes? I say, are there more in the pot? That's how I was raised, but then I figured. So protein, you start off with, do I have health problems like diabetes, renal failure, or something, and I want to change my chemistry fast? Then you might want to go on reducing your protein and shifting from animal to fish, fish to vegan. But that needs a little bit of coaching by a nutritionist, a dietitian, right? Does that make sense? Protein powders. I prefer plant-based protein powders, not milk or whey or casein derivatives, because casein is the milk protein. It is very carcinogenic in animals. Second of all, evolutionarily, I'm not a cow. My mom didn't make cow's milk, she made human milk, and I got weaned. So I'm not a big dairy fan. I don't drink milk. Maybe fermented dairy's okay. So protein, look at what you're eating, look where it came from, look at how much you're eating. That's the first thing I would start, and then I would go next. That makes sense? I should run for office. I'm so political.
Very kind of along the same lines about soy additives and then
Oh, soy. Oh, yeah. Well, that'll get me fired. Can you comment on the... Okay, so, yes, the fact is the increasing use of soy. Listen, eat whole food. If stuff's in the middle of the store, it has to be preserved. It has to be processed. How do they do that? They put soy isoflavin in things. They put salt in things. I shop on the outside of the store. If my grandmother says, Bob, that don't look like food, I don't try to eat it. Now, what about eating tofu? Well, if we will cut across the Pacific Ocean, there are great research studies in women in prevention of breast cancer and with known metastatic breast cancer who are on high fermented soy diets. By that I mean miso, tempeh, tofu, not soy milk or soy isoflavins. We know that fermented soys protect against breast cancer incidence, and there was no decrease in the survival of those women with metastatic disease. So if we thought soy was a true clinically important phytoestrogen, that would not have been the outcome. So if you eat tofu, tempeh, and miso, I have real clinical confidence that you can continue to do such, and it's a healthy protein substitute. But the soy in milk, the soy isoflavins, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of processing, and so I prefer almond milk and cashew and those non-soy plant derivatives, right? Oh, tell us more about, actually, I don't think I'll get fired from Kaiser of Med. I always got to say that because my wife wants me to work. Tell us more about turmeric. Well, okay. So, you know, curcumin, turmeric, that Ayurvedic, that very powerful East Indian spice, right? The yellow that stains everything when you're cooking with it. Yeah. When I learned to cook, my wife almost divorced me. She's like, hey, you made a big ass mess. Why don't we just go and eat the stuff? I'm like, I like doing all that. The key is we know that curcumin has literally hundreds of bioactive effects on the cell and the body's immune system. And in fact, data on test tubes and in lab models and cell lines show that turmeric, curcumin, and some of the phytonutrients and active components actually mimic known drugs, such as Tarceva, Avestin, and other drugs. But here's what we learned about culinary medicine. So then you say, oh, great, I'll go to Safeway, aisle 5A, I'll go buy $1.29 of turmeric or curcumin, and I'm just going to start eating it. And I'm like, oh, dude. Well, first of all, it's not bioabsorbed, and what is bioabsorbed is broken down by the liver. That's not how we figured out that turmeric was powerful. We figured it out epidemiologically from watching populations that eat a lot of curry. What's up with that? So American allopathic science is very good for figuring out what works in the molecular level and not so good in getting Bobby to eat dinner. So the difference between you and a test tube is immense. So it turns out there's a magic there. If you cook curry, you cook it with a tomato, with onions, with garlic, with black pepper, and fat. And that's how you increase the absorption of turmeric, 2,500%. And there's an equation. It's a teaspoon of turmeric, an eighth a teaspoon of black pepper with 1 tablespoon of a fat. So you can make your own golden milk, right? Take some almond milk, take some non-plant, cook it up on a Sunday, let it cool, put it in the refrigerator, take a shot every day. It's funny when your son puts that in the Cheerios. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Hey kid, what are you doing in my turmeric milk? But in key, if you're taking a supplement, that's what you have to look for. Now that supplement probably will cost you $1 to $2 a day alone. And at the end, there's no protein, there's no fiber, there's no B vitamin, it's just some turmeric. So I eat turmeric, curry, and all that about 3-4 times a week. I just cook with it. And on a day that I'm going to have curry or turmeric, I don't drink that stuff. So that's the mechanism. How do you incorporate healthy foods? Now, how do we get the dose that they put in supplements? 500 milligrams. It turns out the average East Indian that was studied in these studies eats about 500 milligrams of turmeric through how much they eat. So we just said, yeah, that's it. That's a minimum effective dose. Boom. But we don't know that it works that way. I think a lot of supplements, and I didn't cover that even though it was one of my slides, supplements just make some very expensive toilet water because you do not absorb turmeric. It's a powerful antioxidant. Ginger, which is one of its botanical cousins, ginger root, is just as anti-inflammatory and as powerful as an anti-inflammatory drug as Motrin and naproxen. So I don't use Motrin and naproxen, neither did my daughter. We tried to incorporate ginger root to control her juvenile rheumatoid. And so ginger root and turmeric are the same. I don't take them on the same day. So turmeric is one of those things, how am I going to incorporate it in my whole food, plant-based diet? And then if I really don't like curry, if I just really don't want to take it, then let's talk supplements and I'll help you. And that's my job. I can't tell you guys all the crap, okay? Buy my book when it comes out.
So I think we're out of time,
Yeah.
aren't we, Cindy? No? We still have time? Oh, yay! I know one of the questions is whether this presentation will be available for later viewing. And Cindy is nodding her head yes, for those of you who are interested in that. So a little bit about mindfulness.
Okay, good. Excellent question. Can you define mindfulness meditation versus reading the Bible and praying? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal spiritually eclectic group. There isn't a spiritual religious thing I haven't tried. Because as a scientist, as a kid raised in a Protestant background in the Midwest, me and science and Protestantism, we came to a screeching little thing about Darwin. And so like a crazy ass kid, I decided Buddhism and I would just do that. And I did Buddhism until I figured out I wasn't a Buddhist and that in reality, meditation, mindfulness, and all the things the Buddha taught, Jesus had taught, no one had made the link for me. And then I met my wife and I became a Catholic. So that is the crazy deal because you know what? Catholicism's okay for my wife, it's okay for me. But I figured out that Catholicism is just full of contemplative, meditative practices. And that when you study Zazen meditation, mindfulness meditation, that's the same thing that goes into Vespers and the scripture, center prayer. When people say they contemplatively read the Bible, how do you do that? You don't flip it up to John and go, woo. No, that don't work. Jesus prayed 6 times a day. And he didn't talk a lot. He listened. The Paraclete, the still voice that is there. I will not leave you. If you invite me in, I will come and I will sup with you. That is exactly the Christian definition of Zazen meditation. The only way you know that is you needed a Buddhist Catholic to tell you that the two were twin brothers of the same mother. Buddha and Jesus are brothers. But pick one. But you don't have to interplace them. So when I pray the scriptures, I meditate, I pray, I calm my mind, I say the mantra, "O Lord Jesus, Son of the living God, have mercy on me." And I say it over and over and over until I'm in a meditative trance, and then I listen. I meditate, I watch my thoughts. And then at the end, I say my intentions. In my practice in the morning, when I'm peaceful and in a trance and meditatively focused, the last 5 minutes, in my mind's eye, I watch and listen and look at all my patients. And I breathe in their suffering and I breathe out kindness. And I ask so that I have the presence and the power to be a great healer for them. When I'm with my patients, I hold them, I touch them, I breathe in, and I try. So is reading the Bible or any scriptural text the same as meditation? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you have to practice it with the depth that was given to us by our Christian founders. Right? Jesus himself said, all those who say, Lord, 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 will not be listened to, but only those who do the will of the Father. Buddha said the same thing. Don't believe anything I tell you, but test it out and only keep what is right. Twin sons of the same mother. So yes, don't violate your spiritual training. If you want, I can make that link for you. But you don't have to. But you do have to practice every single day, right? That makes sense? They're the same. They're not contradictory. Do you know about benefits of kombucha? Yeah. So let me tell you about kombucha, a little bit of the story. I am a Jekyll and Hyde. I do almost everything I ask my patients to do, but I just haven't gotten the chemo part yet. So kombucha was brought in by this little Korean woman, and it looked like swamp water. And I swear to God, I said, I ain't drinking that crap. She goes, oh, you like it. You'll be great. It's great. I thought, okay, what the hell. So I drank it, and I thought I was going to die. But after 7 days, my wife says, I think you're sick, and I think you need to see a doctor. And I said, I see a doctor every day, and I don't trust him because I work with him. And so I stopped the kombucha, but I had some great effect. The problem with kombucha is this. It is fermented black green tea, and fermentation changes the oxidative potential. However, what else does fermentation do? Any fraternity or sorority people? Fermentation was the greatest chemical thing ever discovered. It makes alcohol. That's why we have a government agency, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That sounds like a fraternity party, okay? The key is kombucha is not regulated. And so when it leaves the factory, they have to say it has up or to 1.1% alcohol. Or it has to be called an alcoholic beverage. But it continues to ferment through. So I'm drinking kombucha at the clinic. I'm like, I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, this stuff smells like beer. And I'm drinking it, and the nurses are coming in. They're like, Dr. Ellis, are you drinking back here? I'm like, well, I feel like drinking. And so I did some research, and it turns out that kombucha in standard stores can have up to 1% alcohol. That means the state patrol can pull you over. So I'm like, oh, dude. And then there's making the kombucha yourself. Oh, no. You are playing with microorganisms, and bad things can happen. People die with microbes. So I do think there are healthy outcomes with kombucha, but here's what I would backpedal. Green tea is safe, effective, non-alcoholic, and is the most powerful brewed plant as far as medical outcome gets. So I would say I get more bang for the buck, less, oh, what's that? For 30 to 32 ounces of brewed tea a day. Now, if you like kombucha, if it fits you and you like it, I'm not going to dissuade you. But it's one of those yellow light things. I don't know about that. Green tea. Fermenting it, I don't know, right? See, there is no truth. There's just what's right. Are you suggesting the Mediterranean diet? It depends on who I'm talking to, and it depends what you are willing to do. So what I do is I have the standard American diet, the SAD diet, right? Chuck, I don't make this stuff up. I'm not that smart. The key is it's high fat, high processed. Carbohydrate intake for the SAD diet is 70-75% carbohydrates. Wow. Okay, now let's make another move to clean up the SAD diet. That step is probably called the Mediterranean diet. It is a diet that is recommended by the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, and a lot of research about preventing and treating heart disease. It is a diet which is plant-based, drinking some alcohol, and eating meat only once a day, mostly in a lot of fish. So the Mediterranean diet is what every American probably should be gunning for. And then the next step, I ain't gonna eat those sentient beings, okay? And that's veganism. I don't do omno, preskine, vegetarian, lacto-ovo. I'm like, wow, it's like Protestant denominations. It's like you're a vegan or you're not, okay? Animals were harmed or not. And there is some data that in certain conditions and with certain people, the vegan diet, in fact, might be good. And then there's my favorite, the ketogenic diet, which is completely reducing and eliminating most starches and sugars, so much so that your body flips to only burn fat. That's the famous Atkins diet, which I loved as a young man. You mean I can eat that bacon cheeseburger, not the bread? Okay, that's great. And that's what I did. And I lost weight, and I loved it. There was some problems with that Atkins diet that we were to learn. But in reality, ketogenic diets are important because it turns out that a lot of cancer is driven by a reluctance on mitochondrial dysfunction, which makes them sugar addicts. That's how PET scans work. They inject glucose in you and the sugar goes to the cancer cell. So if I reduce your sugar, the cancer cell can't burn sugar. That's the Achilles heel. But it needs a lot of adult supervision. I have been in and out of ketosis, and I do that on my own, and it just needs some help. So all those diets are 80% kind of alike, but they have those variants. So you have to ask me, the map. This is where I am, the GPS. This is, I have metastatic disease. I have cancer. I have the BRCA1 gene. And this is where I want to go. And then I can help match that to you, right? Please review Parato's info. Okay, perfect. My man, Parato. There's probably an easier way of going through this, but I'm technologically retarded. Oh, back. Okay. Okay. Now, this was really made light of by Stephen Covey, Begin with the End in Mind. And other performance optimal lifestyle coaches really took this. Parato himself was an Italian Renaissance man who figured out that 80% of the Italian real estate and money was held by 20% of the elites. It kind of sounds like a bad version of the 1%ers, right? But Parato then was applied in all kinds of biodynamic and different ways. And what we figured out is if you look at benefit and effort, let's say exercise. So if you plot benefit, heart attacks, blood pressure, whatever, and on the x-axis, you just do minutes. It's not a straight line or an increasing line. It is a downsloping line, which means that 80% of the exercise benefit is found in the first 150 minutes. After that, the benefits start to level off. So you may run a marathon for a lot of different reasons, but your heart benefit was done. That's what the Parato says. Same way with protein. If 80% of your meals are healthy organic meats, 80% of the time, that's the benefit. That's how Weight Watchers works. The magic of Weight Watchers is they give you the cheat points and the free day. So that 80% of the time you're eating Weight Watchers and 20% you ain't, right? That's what Parato is saying. And what I want you to figure out is, I gotta go gung-ho on everything. You got a life. Love, play, work. How are you gonna fit all that stuff in? Do not make nutrition, mindfulness, and exercise your fetish life. Do not substitute the fear of having cancer with depriving that from your life. Balance it all in there, right? Yin and yang. That's what Parato's insight was. Did that help? Yes.
Okay, we have run out of time. We could go on like this for quite a bit longer, I think. But thank you, Dr. Ellis, for your wonderful talk. And just to let you know that this session will be uploaded to Susan G. Komen's YouTube website if you want to look for it there. All right, and we have what, a 15-minute break, Cindy? Okay, 15-minute. Be sure to fill out your evaluations too as you go along. Check out the exhibitor show if you haven't yet, and we'll have our final speaker in about 15 minutes.